What secrets were so dangerous, so utterly taboo, that the mighty Romans felt compelled to bury them deep beneath the very ground they walked on? We picture Rome, don't we? A city of dazzling marble columns reaching for the sky, the roaring cheers of crowds echoing through vast arenas, and those legendary roads straight as an arrow, stretching across continents, binding an empire together. But stop for a moment. Take a breath. Now imagine peeling back the layers of history, past the triumphant arches and bustling piazzas, past the modern traffic and the aroma of trattorias. What you'd find is a hidden world, a subterranean realm of darkness, mystery, and untold stories. Tonight, we're going to descend. We're plunging beneath the sun-drenched surface into a labyrinth of forgotten catacombs, into the hushed confines of forbidden temples, and through the sealed chambers where the empire didn't just store its secrets, it actively buried them. Here, you'll discover the deadliest rituals, the lost treasures that vanished without a trace, and the brutal, often uncomfortable truth behind the spectacular games that captivated millions. By the time our journey ends, you'll understand precisely why Rome's most powerful, its elite, worked tirelessly, sometimes even ruthlessly, to ensure you'd never ever set foot in these places. They didn't want you to see what lay beneath, and for good reason. Every glossy guidebook, every polished documentary gushes about the Colosseum's grandeur, the Forum's echoes of power, the Pantheon's architectural genius. And rightly so, they're magnificent. Yet what? Almost no one tells you is this. The real story, the raw, unfiltered truth of Rome, often lies directly beneath your feet. It's down there, entombed in the earth, waiting. Roman engineers, with their astonishing ingenuity, priests guarding ancient rites, and even emperors wielding absolute power, didn't just build on the ground. They sank entire worlds below street level. Think about it, shrines so profoundly secret that initiates swore oaths, binding them to silence under penalty of death. Tunnels stretching for miles, their walls lined with the silent, stacked bones of generations. Storehouses brimming with treasure, enough wealth to fund a legion tucked away from prying eyes. For the Romans, underground was the ultimate vault, the perfect sanctuary for anything you couldn't afford to lose, or perhaps more tellingly, anything you couldn't afford to have seen. Consider the laws, for instance. Ancient burial laws strictly forbade interring the dead within the sacred boundary of the city, known as the pomerium. So, what did Rome's diverse population do? Christians, Jews, and even followers of older polytheistic traditions, all needing a resting place for their loved ones, began digging. They carved out miles upon miles of intricate tunnels beyond the city walls, creating vast subterranean cities for the dead. Then there were the mystery cults, seeking communion with their deities in profound secrecy. They painstakingly carved out windowless chapels, deep underground, where only the flickering, intimate glow of torchlight could reveal the face of their god or the sacred symbols of their faith. And what about the emperors themselves? In a city where power was fleeting and dynasties rose and fell with violent regularity, emperors sometimes buried their own magnificent palaces, knowing full well that the next regime would want them forgotten, their legacy erased. Add to this already complex mix a very healthy, very real fear of looters, of rioting mobs, and of invading armies who could sweep through the city, destroying everything in their path. What you get is a culture that didn't just adapt to these pressures, it perfected the art of hiding, or rather, of going profoundly underground. Tonight, as we embark on this subterranean exploration, we're going to unravel 4 crucial questions that get to the heart of Rome's hidden history. First, what tangible, physical secrets still lie beneath the bustling, modern city of Rome, waiting to be unearthed? What forgotten structures and hidden spaces are just a few feet below the pavement? Second, what incredible treasures were hidden down there, tucked away for safekeeping? And why, after all these centuries, were they never recovered? What circumstances conspired to keep them buried? Third, how did the powerful forces of religion and politics conspire to transform subterranean space itself into a potent weapon of control, shaping beliefs and dictating access? And finally, perhaps most importantly, what does all this buried history, these whispers from the dark, tell us about the fundamental Roman mindset, What does it reveal about a people who so gloriously celebrated their triumphs and power? On the surface, yet meticulously stashed their most delicate, inconvenient, or dangerous truths deep in the dark, hidden from the world. This isn't just a historical tour, it's an archaeological detective story. So seriously, grab a flashlight, take a deep breath, because where we're going, the air gets thin. Close your eyes for a moment and picture it. 50,000 frenzied spectators, their cheers and stomps a thunderous roar overhead, while directly beneath them, in absolute suffocating darkness, wild animals paced, gladiators waited, and stagehands prepared for their moment. That wasn't some fleeting nightmare. That was daily life in the Hypogeum, the Colosseum's massive, sprawling basement complex. It was a dizzying, multi-level maze of corridors, ramps, and no fewer than 80 elevator shafts, all powered by raw human muscle, by the sweat and strain of countless enslaved individuals. Imagine the sheer logistics: slaves, exotic beasts, and elaborate stage sets, all appearing as if by magic through trapdoors, rising dramatically into the sunlit arena. But this wasn't magic, it was pure, brutal, mechanical genius. Recent laser scans, using cutting-edge technology that pierces through centuries of earth and rubble, have unveiled the true scale of this subterranean marvel. The Hypogeum stretched over 3 distinct levels, covering an astonishing 6 acres. That's roughly the size of 4 American football fields crammed underneath the Colosseum's elliptical stadium floor. It was an engineering feat as staggering as the Colosseum itself, yet for centuries, this marvel remained almost entirely invisible. After the dramatic collapse of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century, the Hypogeum, like so much of Rome's infrastructure, simply fell into disuse. Romans, facing new realities and dwindling resources, began to fill it with rubbish, with debris, with the detritus of a dying age, until eventually they simply forgot it existed. It vanished from collective memory. It wasn't until the late 1800s, when pioneering archaeologists began the painstaking work of excavation, that this hidden world was slowly brought back to light. They dug and dug, revealing the dark, damp passages, unearthing the iron winches, some still reportedly stained with the dried blood of animals long dead. But why hide such engineering brilliance? Why bury a system so intricate, so vital to the spectacle? Because the games, the gladiatorial contests, the staged hunts were never just entertainment. They were meticulously orchestrated propaganda, a dazzling display of imperial power and generosity designed to awe and control the masses, allowing ordinary Romans, the very audience being manipulated, to peek behind the curtain risked exposing just how staged, how artificial everything truly was. Emperors needed the crowd to believe that victory, that mercy, that the very fate of men and beasts came straight from the divine authority of the throne, not from some unseen slave straining to yank a lever or turn a winch in the dark. Out of sight truly meant out of mind. The spectacle of the games was a masterclass in illusion, but the Romans understood that some secrets went deeper than stagecraft. Some truths weren't about entertainment, but about salvation, and they had to be buried even further from the light. Imagine yourself walking past the Circus Maximus 2,000 years ago. You'd hear the thunderous hooves of chariots racing, the roar of the crowd, the vibrant chaos of a Roman afternoon. What you wouldn't know, what you couldn't possibly guess, was that barely 30 feet beneath your feet, in absolute silence, men cloaked in hoods were sharing a sacred meal. They'd be gathered around a flickering lamp, their eyes fixed on a carved relief depicting the god Mithras, eternally plunging his dagger into a cosmic bull. The cult of Mithras was, without a doubt, Rome's most secretive religion. It wasn't just exclusive, it was intensely private, its rites and doctrines guarded with ferocious loyalty. Initiation into its mysteries meant swearing an oath so profoundly binding that late antique writers, those who observed the cult from afar, claimed members would rather face death than reveal a single ritual, a single secret word. This wasn't mere discretion, it was an unbreakable covenant with the divine. Archaeologists, through decades of meticulous work, have now mapped more than 30 of these subterranean Mithraea beneath the modern city of Rome alone, with many more scattered across the empire. What's fascinating is their uncanny uniformity. Each one generally follows the same precise blueprint, a long, narrow aisle, flanked on either side by raised benches where initiates reclined for sacred meals. At the far end always, a niche housing. The iconic image of Mithra slaying the bull, often accompanied by other symbolic figures. And above, a ceiling meticulously painted with stars, transforming the underground chamber into a cosmic cave, mirroring the legendary grotto where Mithra supposedly performed his foundational act. Worship wasn't just a casual affair, it was deeply symbolic, often taking place at noon and midnight, reflecting the god's journey across the celestial sphere. Crucially, the cult rigidly barred women from its rites, and it deliberately kept no public temples. This wasn't an oversight, it was a strategic choice. It meant that powerful Roman senators, men whose public image and political respectability were everything, could join the cult without fear of social repercussions or public scrutiny. As long as no one ever spoke of it, their participation in this exotic, secretive faith remained their own private affair. But times changed. When Christianity, after centuries of persecution, ascended to become the state religion of the Roman Empire in 380 CE, the tables turned dramatically. The authorities, now Christian, systematically sought to eradicate rival faiths. They smashed Mithraic altars, defaced sacred images, and with a chilling efficiency, sealed the entrances to these underground sanctuaries with concrete, literally burying the competition. But as Christian authorities buried the faith of Mithras, their own followers were simultaneously engaged in a far larger subterranean project, not to hide from rivals, but to create a silent, sprawling city for their dead. Rome, a city teeming with life, also harbors an astonishing, silent metropolis beneath its streets. Its 60 known catacombs, these vast underground networks twist and turn for at least 375 miles. Think about that for a moment. That's a distance longer than traversing the entire length of the UK, from Land's End to John O. Groats. All of it was painstakingly chiseled by hand, pickaxe by pickaxe, into the soft, volcanic tufa rock that underlies the region. The very word, catacomb, itself offers a hint about their nature. It comes from the Latin phrase ad catacumbas, meaning near the hollows. This was a topographical descriptor, a subtle acknowledgement that these sprawling tunnels were always peripheral, always just beyond the official boundaries of the living city. And there was a very practical, very ancient reason for that marginalization. Roman law strictly forbade burying anyone inside the sacred confines of the city. The dead, with their potential for disease and ritual impurity, had to be kept separate. So families, driven by necessity and tradition, began digging. They carved out corridors beyond the city walls, creating shelf-like niches called loculi in which to stack bodies. These niches were surprisingly compact, often no bigger than a modern dorm room fridge, designed to maximize space within the finite subterranean real estate. Early Christians, a minority group often viewed with suspicion and occasionally subjected to brutal persecution, found this existing system perfectly adaptable. They expanded upon it, creating their own distinctive sections within the catacombs. Here, in the quiet darkness, away from prying eyes, they painted frescoes on the walls, simple, yet profound images of loaves and fishes, gentle doves, and the comforting figure of the Good Shepherd. These weren't mere decorations, they were coded symbols, a visual language legible only to fellow believers, a way to express their faith without openly inviting the wrath of Roman authorities. While persecution wasn't constant, its threat was real enough. Now ask yourself, how do you escape an underground raid? Christians, fearing sudden attacks or attempts to desecrate their holy sites, even carved narrow escape shafts and ventilation holes into the rock, passages so tight that a grown man couldn't possibly squeeze through, offering a desperate, last-ditch route to safety or at least a breath of fresh air. When Constantine finally legalized Christianity in 313 CE, dramatically shifting the empire's religious landscape, the catacombs transformed. They evolved from clandestine burial grounds into revered pilgrimage stops. This reverence, however, had an unfortunate side effect. Relic hunters, sometimes driven by genuine piety, sometimes by sheer opportunism, chipped away bones from martyr graves, taking pieces as sacred mementos. This continued unchecked until the 8th century, when invading Lombards posed a direct threat. In response, Roman authorities transferred the precious remains of saints and martyrs from the exposed catacombs to churches safely inside the city walls. Once emptied of their most sacred contents, many catacombs were deliberately backfilled, their entrances slowly obscured by the relentless march of time and forgotten. Sometimes, however, the earth doesn't wait for centuries of quiet neglect to claim its secrets. Sometimes a hoard of treasure, a family's legacy, or even an emperor's palace can be buried in a single violent flash of fire or political fury. Sometimes the earth becomes a reluctant vault, not by human design, but by the capricious hand of fate. Take, for instance, the remarkable discovery in Histria, modern-day Romania. About 1,900 years ago, a catastrophic house fire ripped through a Roman-era dwelling. The intense heat carbonized the roof beams, melted glass vessels into grotesque, beautiful forms, and most incredibly, fused a collection of coins together into a solid, shimmering lump of silver and bronze. The owners, undoubtedly terrified, fled for their lives, abandoning everything. The debris cooled, the building collapsed, and the site was slowly, relentlessly reclaimed by the earth. Archaeologists, working meticulously only last summer, finally unearthed this poignant time capsule. Inside, they found a treasure, 180 Roman denarii, silver coins that spoke of a family's wealth, alongside ornate jewelry, still neatly stacked within what had once been a wooden box, now reduced to a fragile, ghostly charcoal imprint. Fires, floods, and landslides across the vast Roman Empire acted as accidental preservers. Pompeii, of course, is the poster child for this phenomenon. Entire villas, frozen in their final moments, sealed like macabre time capsules, revealing the stark and often heartbreaking realities of Roman society. But the Romans themselves weren't always passive recipients of nature's preserving hand. Sometimes they actively accelerated the process of burial, turning it into a deliberate act of political erasure. Consider the infamous emperor Nero and his golden house, the Domus Aurea. This sprawling, outrageously lavish estate covered a square mile right in the heart of Rome. When Nero's reign ended in scandal and suicide, his successors embarked on a colossal act of political vandalism. They didn't just tear it down, they dumped tons of earth and rubble over vast sections of the palace, burying its frescoed walls. They then built new structures on top, most notably the Colosseum, which was constructed directly over what had been Nero's artificial lake. It was the ultimate expression of that Roman impulse. Out of sight meant out of memory. This was a deliberate, monumental effort to rewrite the skyline and physically erase a controversial legacy. Erasing a despised emperor was a powerful statement, but the Romans applied the same out of sight, out of mind, logic to the very lifelines of the city itself. For their most critical infrastructure, invisibility wasn't an afterthought, it was the entire point. When most people think of Roman aqueducts, their minds immediately conjure images of those magnificent, towering arches striding across the landscape. And yes, those arches are indeed impressive, but here's the often overlooked truth. Those arches represent only a fraction of Rome's vast, 300-mile aqueduct network. An astonishing 80% of that network ran completely underground. Imagine the sheer scale of the undertaking. Engineers, with tools far cruder than our own, cut trenches as deep as 130 feet into the earth. They then meticulously lined these subterranean channels with a special waterproof cement, a Roman innovation so durable that sections of these ancient conduits still carry fresh water to this very day. The precision required was mind-boggling. The gradient, the gentle slope that allowed water to flow consistently by gravity, had to be maintained with incredible accuracy. A mere 1-foot drop for every 4,800 feet of length, a level of precision we can now only confirm with modern GPS. So why hide such an astounding marvel of engineering? There were several compelling reasons. First and foremost, security. A buried channel is inherently safe from sabotage. An invading army can't topple what it can't even see. It was a brilliant, passive defense mechanism, keeping the city's lifeline out of the sight and therefore out of the minds of their enemies. Second, practical urban planning was key. Surface space was always at a premium. By routing the aqueducts underground, valuable surface acreage wasn't wasted. It could be used for agriculture or housing. Third, and equally important, was the quality of the water itself. Shielded from the sun and debris, water flowing through subterranean channels remained consistently cool and remarkably clean. What's truly astonishing is that most of these subterranean tunnels remain unexcavated, still performing their silent duty. Subway drills boring through the earth occasionally hit unexpected voids, and suddenly they've encountered a pristine stretch of an ancient aqueduct. A fantastic example occurred in 2020 when crews working under a parking garage discovered a perfectly preserved section of the aqueduct. Alexandrina. Archaeologists now estimate that a staggering 60% of the ancient aqueduct route is still completely undocumented, an invisible lifeline hidden beneath millennia of streets. But not all of Rome's hidden spaces were about ensuring life or hiding from enemies. Some served a far more unsettling, far more spiritual purpose: to stare directly into the face of death and turn its chilling reality into an unforgettable work of art. In the year 1631, a rather macabre, yet profoundly spiritual, event unfolded in Rome. The Capuchin monks, a Franciscan order, decided to move their monastery, and when they moved, they brought with them the earthly remains of 3,000 of their deceased brothers, carefully transported in cartloads. But instead of simply reburying them, these monks embarked on a truly unique project. What they created was the Capuchin crypt, a series of 6 small chapels located directly beneath the quiet, unassuming Santa Maria della Concezione dei Cappuccini church. Here, they didn't just arrange bones, they turned skeletons into chandeliers, meticulously crafted wall patterns, and even unsettling hourglasses made of vertebrae and phalanges. Skull capitals spell out stark, haunting messages. The most famous, chillingly direct, reads, "What you are now, we once were. What we are now, you shall be." This crypt, a breathtakingly elaborate memento mori, lies just a few blocks from the bustling cafes of modern Rome. Tourists, drawn by its macabre fascination, whisper in hushed tones, yet many Romans pass by without a second glance. The message isn't for everyone. It's for those who understand the philosophy. It's a profound spiritual truth, tucked away under the city's superficial glitter, a reminder of life's brevity. Technically, the crypt is above sea level, not truly underground in the geological sense, yet spiritually and experientially it is profoundly subterranean. It's hidden in plain sight, accessible only through a narrow side staircase that spirals downwards, making you feel as though you're descending into a forgotten vault. This idea of a hidden space delivering a powerful, targeted message gets to the very core of Rome's subterranean strategy. Because in the Roman world, what you buried determined who you could control. Secrecy wasn't just a habit, it was a weapon. In ancient Rome, secrecy was rarely an accident, it was almost always policy. It was a carefully cultivated tool of power, a deliberate strategy wielded by the elite to maintain control. Senators kept no published minutes of their proceedings. Their debates, their decisions, the very mechanisms of governance remained largely opaque to the common citizen. Priests fiercely protected the Sibylline books, prophetic texts of immense power, behind locked doors, accessible only to a select few. Emperors utilized the frumentarii, a shadowy secret police force, to gather intelligence and suppress opposition. Space itself became a weapon in this strategic game of control. Picture the Roman elite strategy: put the masses on stage, dazzle them with spectacle, entertain them with bread and circuses, but relegate the sensitive stuff, the truly important mechanisms of power and belief. To the dark, by carving out Mithria beneath public buildings, the elites could meet and worship quite literally below the radar. By dumping tons of earth over Nero's palace, they were rewriting history with shovels. And by banning burial within the city, they pushed the memory of the dead to the margins, controlling not just physical space but also the collective consciousness. It's a tactic that resonates even today. Modern politics, with all its technological sophistication, still borrows heavily from this ancient playbook of classified archives and off-site servers. The Romans simply lacked electricity, so their hidden server farm, their secure data center, was carved from the soft tufa rock, illuminated by the flickering, conspiratorial glow of torchlight, and the tactic worked brilliantly. For centuries, until the advent of technologies like laser scanning and ground-penetrating radar, we had virtually no idea how much lay hidden beneath Rome. Even now, only a fraction of this subterranean world is truly accessible. Many catacombs flood in winter, becoming impassable, and Roman law itself often limits excavation under inhabited areas, protecting modern infrastructure but simultaneously preserving ancient mysteries. And that brings us to the most crucial question of all. Beyond the thrill of discovery, why does any of this matter today? Understanding Rome's vast, intricate underground network isn't just about satisfying historical curiosity. It fundamentally reframes our entire image of the empire. We tend to think of the Romans as a people obsessed with public display, with grand gestures, with spectacle. And yes, they absolutely loved spectacle. But what this subterranean exploration reveals is that they loved opacity, secrecy, and control even more. They engineered breathtaking marvels, yes, but then they engineered their invisibility, ensuring that the true power remained hidden. This tension between the dazzling display on the surface and the calculated disguise beneath shaped a civilization whose unofficial motto could very well have been, "Show nothing that truly matters." It's a powerful lesson, reminding us that what a society deliberately buries often reveals its truer priorities: the profound fear of death, the relentless craving for control, or simply the desire to maintain power. The study of Rome's underground isn't just confined to dusty history books either. It has incredibly modern, even futuristic, applications. Archaeologists today are using Rome as an unparalleled training ground for planetary exploration. NASA, for instance, famously tested a rover in the catacomb of San Domitilla to practice navigation in conditions of total darkness, dealing with tight turns and unstable terrain, precisely the skills needed for future missions exploring the lava tubes and subterranean caverns of the Moon or Mars. The same geological stratigraphy that has preserved ancient frescoes for millennia could, on another planet, conceal vital resources like water ice. Rome, therefore, becomes an unexpected teacher, offering a profound lesson for future explorers. If you truly want to find life-changing secrets, don't just follow the well-trodden roads. Follow the tunnels. History, as we've seen, has a funny way of resurfacing, and if you need one. Last jaw-dropping piece of proof, you only have to look at what a simple repair job uncovered just last year. If these stories, these glimpses into Rome's hidden depths, are exactly your kind of rabbit hole, the kind that leaves you pondering long after the lights are out, then you absolutely need to subscribe. Hit that notification bell too, so you don't miss our next descent into history's most fascinating, often overlooked corners. We love hearing from you, so drop a comment below and tell us which Roman mystery asterisk you want us to uncover next. And do me a favor, share this video with that friend who still insists history is boring. I dare you. Let's show them just how thrilling the past can be. Just last year, a seemingly routine task led to an extraordinary discovery. Restorers working to fix a persistent leak beneath the Basilica of San Lorenzo in Lucina drilled into what they expected to be solid ground. Instead, their drill bit plunged into a void. What they found inside was nothing short of astonishing: a perfectly preserved 30-foot room, its walls still lined with the carbonized remains of wooden shelves. This wasn't just a chamber, it was an ancient library. The scrolls themselves had long since disintegrated into dust. But incredibly, the small, inscribed ivory labels that had once identified each scroll survived. Imagine the thrill of discovery as archaeologists carefully deciphered them. Virgil Ovid, a complex treatise on astronomy. Rome, a city we thought we knew so well, had been hiding a secret archive, a storehouse of ancient knowledge directly beneath a modern insurance office. Now ask yourself, why would anyone store literature underground? The reasons were surprisingly practical. For one, floors above ground were prime real estate. Secondly, scrolls made of flammable materials were a significant fire hazard in a city prone to devastating blazes. And thirdly, knowledge, much like fine wine, keeps better at a stable temperature. The subterranean environment provided a cool, consistent climate, shielding these precious texts from the ravages of heat and moisture. This find confirms a profound truth. Romans hid far more than just bodies and treasure. They meticulously hid ideas. Censorship, for them, wasn't merely about erasing inconvenient truths. It was often about hoarding knowledge, concentrating it in the hands of an elite few. Those who could descend into these hidden libraries, who could read and interpret the ancient texts, and then resurface to share or withhold that information, effectively controlled the narrative. Today, this incredible chamber is once again sealed, its entrance tiled over, awaiting the necessary funds and political will for proper excavation. Another secret, another layer of Rome's hidden history, has quietly slipped from sight, waiting patiently to be fully explored. We've journeyed deep tonight, descended beneath the gladiator arenas, the secret clubs, and the noisy cafes of Rome. What we found was a mirror city, a reflection that played by entirely opposite rules, a realm of darkness over sunlight, of profound secrecy over public display, of memory deliberately buried. The Romans hid their deadliest secrets underground not because they had some inherent love for the dark. They hid them because the dark was their greatest ally. Darkness kept power concentrated, away from the prying eyes of the masses. It kept their enemies guessing, unsure of what lay beneath the surface. And most of all, it kept history malleable, allowing them to sculpt narratives, to erase inconvenient pasts, and to control the very fabric of memory itself. The true Roman Empire wasn't just built on 7 hills, it was carved into the earth beneath them. Every new radar sweep, every unexpected drill bit plunging into a void, proves this story isn't finished. Miles of tunnels, chambers, and forgotten spaces still await discovery. The earth, it turns out, is Rome's most enduring historian. So the next time you find yourself strolling past the majestic Colosseum, take a moment. Remember, your feet aren't just tapping on ancient cobblestones. You're standing on the lid of a vast, silent vault. The Roman Empire, in many ways, never truly fell. It simply, profoundly went underground. If this descent into Rome's hidden depths left you thirsty for more mysteries, for more of history's untold stories, then tap the video on screen now to explore the emperor who treated his horse like a queen. Or better yet, hit that subscribe button for weekly journeys into the past that the textbooks conveniently left out. History's darkest corners are now being lit. Let's keep exploring them together.